Have you ever heard of a war so absurd, so utterly pointless, that it sounds like something out of a comedy sketch? Well, buckle up, because today we're diving into what is widely considered the dumbest, most baffling conflict in military history, the Great Emu War. Yes, you heard that right. A war fought between humans and emus. This isn't a joke. It's a real, documented event that took place in Australia in 1932. To understand how humanity ended up in a declared war against giant flightless birds, we need to go back to the aftermath of World War I. After the Great War, thousands of Australian veterans were given plots of land in Western Australia to start new lives as wheat farmers. It was a noble idea, a reward for their service. The government encouraged them to cultivate wheat, and things were looking promising. But then, the Great Depression hit, and wheat prices plummeted. Farmers were already struggling. And just when they thought things couldn't get any worse, an unexpected enemy appeared on the horizon. Around 20,000 emus, on their annual migration, discovered these vast, new fields of wheat. To them, it was an all-you-can-eat buffet. They weren't just eating the crops. They were trampling everything in their path, tearing down fences, and leaving a trail of destruction. The farmers were desperate. Their livelihoods were being devoured by an army of feathered giants. The ex-soldiers, remembering their military training, petitioned the government for help. They couldn't just shoot the emus themselves. These birds were tough, fast, and there were simply too many of them. The farmers' delegation met with the Minister of Defense, Sir George Pierce. Now, here's where it gets truly wild. Instead of just providing ammunition or resources, Sir George Pierce, a military man himself, saw an opportunity. He figured this would be great target practice for the Royal Australian Artillery. Plus, the emu feathers could be used to make hats for the Australian Light Horsemen. It seemed like a win-win. So, the decision was made. The Australian military would officially declare war on the emu population. Major G. P. W. Meredith of the 7th Heavy Battery of the Royal Australian Artillery was put in command of the operation. He was given 2 soldiers, Sergeant S. McMurray and Gunner J. O'Halloran, and 2 powerful Lewis machine guns with 10,000 rounds of ammunition. On paper, this was a ridiculously one-sided fight. I mean, machine guns versus birds? The emus stood no chance, right? Wrong. The first attempt at engagement happened on November 2nd, 1932. The soldiers spotted a flock of about 50 emus. They set up their Lewis gun and waited for the perfect moment to open fire. But the emus were smarter than they looked. As soon as the shooting started, the flock didn't panic and run in a predictable group. Instead, they scattered in all directions, running erratically, making them incredibly difficult targets. The gunner fired round after round, but only managed to take down a handful of birds. The rest escaped completely unharmed. It was a shocking failure. A few days later, Major Meredith tried a new tactic. He planned an ambush near a local dam where over 1,000 emus were known to gather. This was it, their chance to make a real dent in the emu population. The gunners hid and waited patiently. The emus approached, but just as they were about to open fire, one of the Lewis guns jammed. The element of surprise was lost. The birds, alerted by the commotion, scattered once again. A second attempt that day was equally frustrating, with the emus proving too fast and agile for the machine gunners. One observer famously commented on the emus' surprising military prowess. He said that each flock seemed to have a leader, a large black-plumed bird that would keep watch while its comrades ate. At the first sign of danger, it would give a warning cry, and the whole flock would disperse before any real damage could be done. The emus even seemed to adopt guerrilla tactics. Major Meredith himself expressed a grudging respect for his enemy, reportedly saying, "If we had a military division with the bullet-carrying capacity of these birds, it would face any army in the world." The media got wind of this bizarre campaign, and the story became a source of public amusement and ridicule. Headlines mocked the military's inability to defeat a bunch of birds. Conservationists began to protest, calling the war a cruel and pointless slaughter of native wildlife. The whole operation was becoming a national embarrassment. After about a week of frustrating and fruitless campaigning, during which the military had fired nearly 2,500 rounds to kill maybe 50 to 200 emus. Accounts vary, but the number was pitifully low. Major Meredith and his men were recalled. The first phase of the Great Emu War had ended. The emus had won. But the farmers' problems hadn't gone away. In fact, the emu raids continued, perhaps even more aggressively. The farmers once again pleaded for military assistance. And incredibly, the government agreed to a second attempt. So, on November 13th, Major Meredith was sent back into the field. This time, the military claimed to have more success. They reported killing nearly 1,000 emus with about 10,000 rounds. However, the overall emu population remained vast and undeterred. Even with this higher claimed body count, it was clear that a military solution wasn't working. It was expensive, inefficient, and terrible for public relations. Finally, in December 1932, the military officially withdrew for good. The Great Emu War was over. The final tally? The Australian military had been thoroughly outmaneuvered by a population of birds. The emus had suffered some casualties, but their forces remained strong, and they continued to thrive. So what happened next? The government realized that machine guns weren't the answer. Instead, they implemented a more effective, long-term solution, a bounty system. This encouraged farmers and professional hunters to cull the emus themselves, which proved to be far more successful over the following years. In 1934 alone, over 57,000 bounties were claimed. Eventually, the construction of extensive barrier fences also helped to keep the emus out of agricultural areas. The Great Emu War remains a fascinating and hilarious chapter in history. It's a story about underestimating your opponent, the limits of conventional warfare against an unconventional problem, and the moment a national military was humbled by nature. It serves as a perfect example of how the seemingly most powerful solution isn't always the right one. It's a tale that sounds too strange to be true, but it absolutely is. A war where the final victory went not to the side with machine guns and soldiers, but to the fast, resilient, and surprisingly tactical emu. So what do you think? Is this the dumbest war in history, or is there another conflict that deserves the title? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. I'd love to hear them. Thanks so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this weird piece of history, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more strange stories from the past. See you next time.